follow your heart. What does that mean? Pretty much to sum it up, it just means doing what you want to do, not doing what anyone else wants you to do, what they're telling you to do, what someone else envisions for you. Doing what's true to you, following your passion. So like if your parents want you to do one thing and then you want to do another, you do that thing. You do the thing that you want to do, not what they want from you, not conforming to what other people expect of you, all right? Because this is literally the biggest regret of people on their deathbed, so old people, is conforming to everyone else's expectations their whole life, not doing anything that they wanted to do, just doing what they were told they should do, what was best for them in other people's eyes. So they just never took the risk, they never started the business, they never went to the gym, they never did anything outside of their comfort zone or anything that they actually wanted to do that was true to their heart. So I just wanted to come on here and actually go over how you're going to find your purpose, how you're going to work out what is true to your heart and what's not. Something I always say is that your heart will never have a bad thought, it will never have a negative thought or recommendation, right? So taking drugs, doing all that sort of stuff, obviously that's not true to your heart, that's your brain, your dopamine chemistry that's guiding that decision. Now that one seems quite obvious, but it gets a bit complicated when you get into goal setting. So although you might have a goal that seems super good and you seem like a super ambitious person for pursuing it, it may not be yours, it may not actually belong to you. So if you've set a goal of making $1 million drop shipping by a really certain moment in time, that may not actually be your goal. As much as it feels like a good goal, you're working towards it, if you don't genuinely feel connected to it, like you don't actually enjoy making websites, you don't enjoy coding, you don't enjoy finding products, doing product research, advertising, making video ads, then you need to have a think to yourself, was there someone else that put this idea in my head, that made me have this goal, that caused me to want to pursue it? Because there's a very high chance that if you don't feel connected to the work you're doing, that is the case. And it is the case for a lot of people. I will include myself into that category, right? Because for a long time I had a goal of, becoming a rapper and making music full time and making that my career. But only as of recent, so I think it was around April this year, I decided to quit that because I was thinking to myself, is this going to have a big impact on anyone else's lives other than my own if I were to make money off of it? Not really. It's just gonna, make people feel good in the moment listening to music. And then I thought to myself, why do I have this goal of being, a big rapper, big in the industry? It was because that was cool. That's what the majority of people, the majority of Australians thought was cool. Like, oh yeah, he's an Oz rapper, he's a famous Oz rapper, that's so cool. And it made me think, like, this is not what I actually want. I want more out of life than just making music and doing things for myself. I actually want to get somewhere and progress the population forward, like help young men do the same sort of things that I'm doing, and that's not going to be done just through music. So I had to stop it, and I knew that it wasn't a super high means of income. But the most simple way to identify if a goal is foreign, as in not yours, is to, as I said, identify whether or not you feel connected to it. So if every day you're working on something and you find yourself getting distracted or you don't feel a connection to it, then chances are it's probably a foreign goal that was put there by someone else. And the way to sort of break out of this cycle is start doing new things, and don't worry about your progress in the area that you've been working so hard on, because you need to be open to new possibilities. That is something I had to learn, all right? Because I thought, I can't just stop rapping. I've been doing it for like a year now, and I've put in all this work, and I've been trying to grow it, and I've grown this audience on TikTok. I can't just stop rapping. But I did it anyway. I did what my heart was guiding. I started YouTube, stopped the rapping, started my e-commerce store, and that got me to where I am today. So I don't work anymore, don't have a full-time job, I work for myself. Taking that risk actually got me to where I am today, okay? Doing something for myself in the past got me to where I am today. I didn't do this work, my past self did, but I wouldn't have got to where I am if I hadn't have made that decision. Made the brave decision of quitting, leaving everything behind, burning the boats, if you will, and changing my circumstances for the better. Okay, so dropshipping isn't necessarily what I want to do with my life, but I use that as an avenue to get me out of the circumstance that I was in to now the one that I'm in now, and I've sort of got a bit more freedom, and I'm a bit more lenient to what I actually can do, put my time towards, because I have so much more time available. So in following your heart, it's not necessarily going to be something that's a super long-term possibility, but what it's going to do is it's just going to give you more opportunity to make something bigger of yourself. So exactly what I'm saying about how I was working 4 months ago. Imagine if I hadn't have started that e-commerce store. Imagine if I hadn't have left the girl who I was with. I'd probably still be working in the factory job, which I didn't like whatsoever. But taking that risk got me to where I am now. And as I said, I don't want to pursue dropshipping for the rest of my life, but I use that as an avenue to get me to where I am now. You can't really be guided by your heart if you've got external dopamine sources at a mass scale. So if you've got heaps of dopamine sources like taking drugs, drinking alcohol, watching porn, the whole 9 yards, if you've just got all this negative shit in your life, you're never going to be able to be driven and guided by your heart's desire, because all of those decisions are led by the brain, and that's always going to overpower the heart if they're at reach, okay? If they're at arm's length, you're easily going to be able to reach them like that. You are never going to reach your full potential. And I only realized this once I actually stopped taking drugs. I started finding more things that I actually enjoy doing that weren't drugs, that weren't alcohol, that weren't porn, that weren't giving into the short-term pleasures. They actually required work, but I enjoyed them. So for those of you who don't know, I started a clothing brand back when I was 15 years old. And in the end, it didn't do too well, but I learned a lot of, so much stuff in doing that I was able to apply in my businesses, which I've got running these days, and it helped me with the whole content creation side of things. And I just learned so much good knowledge that I'm now able to apply, right? So that clothing brand wouldn't have been started if I had have kept doing drugs, drinking alcohol, all that sort of stuff. And that's exactly why I'm saying you've got to get rid of this shit from your life for good. And I know it's super hard to think this way all the time, like, oh yeah, no, that decision's not led by my heart, so I'm not going to do it. A lot of the time you are going to be led by your brain's desire, but you just need to be able to identify when and why that is. What triggers you, what actually triggers watching porn, triggers you watching Netflix. Because if you can identify that, you can slowly but surely strip back and become the man who you actually want to be, because you're just going to slowly eliminate the things that are causing the negative habits to come back into your life, and you'll just pick them off one by one. But if you don't have any sort of idea what you actually want to do with your life, like you don't know where you're going, you don't even remotely know what you're interested in, that's because you've allowed all these negative things into your life, all the short-term pleasures. You've never actually indulged in anything meaningful. So that's all you've got to start to do. Just start working hard towards literally anything. I'm not saying work hard towards finishing a series on Netflix. That's not what I mean at all. Start a business, create a Shopify store. It'll be shit, guaranteed it'll be shit. Your first product, your first video is always going to be shit. Your first anything will always be terrible. But just that process of starting, you're going to learn so much from. You'll just slowly build up the skills, build up the necessary habits to actually reach a minor degree of success, okay? I had no idea what I was doing when I started my first business. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I would argue that I still don't quite know. I obviously want to do this content forever, but that's not necessarily going to be all I do. I'm sure there's other things that will come in that I really enjoy that I'm going to do with my life. But that's for me to figure out, right? But in starting that clothing brand, I had no idea, no prior skills, not a single clue what I was doing. As I said, I built them up. I learned how to make content. I learned how to make sales. I learned how to put together garments and actually build pieces of clothing that looked presentable. All of these skills, which I didn't have before, I had 6 months after starting it, right? So it's just a matter of starting and working hard. And I would argue that when I started that brand, I wasn't even working that hard, at least not as hard as I am now. So if you can just dead set, if you can just lock in, cut out all the shit and just grind for 6 months, you will be ahead of 99% of the population at your age. Okay, so it's not a matter of being absolutely perfect and studying the shit out of something that you're looking at. Just start. Whatever you're looking at, just start, because I promise you, 6 months from now, you will be thanking yourself, bro. I promise you that. If I hadn't started this dropshipping store, I would have half of the mental capacity that I do now, because I've learned how to deal with stress so much more because of all the sort of struggles that I've gone through with the store and all the things that I've learned. I've just had to undergo a lot of stress for someone at my age. And I'm not complaining about that. I'm actually really grateful for that, because I have learnt more in the past 4 months than most guys can say in their lifetime, because I've applied myself. Most guys never do. They just fuck around their whole lives. So don't let that be you. Be led by your heart's desire and not your brain's desire, and literally just start on anything. Doesn't matter what it is. And as always, stay grinding, bro.